Today on How It's Made Dream Cars. The Morgan Aero Coupe, the sports car that's made by hand. Located in Malvern, England, the Morgan Motor Company started as a dealership selling other manufacturers' cars. Then in 1909, its long history of making sports cars for both the road and track began. The inspiration for all Morgan cars comes from the founders living in the hills of Malvern, where they needed powerful vehicles that were also about family comfort and ample cargo space. Founder Henry Morgan guided the company for almost 50 years. The initial success of the company was based on its iconic three-wheeler. Known as the cycle car, this brilliant yet simple design became one of the most successful lightweight cars in early motoring history. The company then developed the two-seat runabout, which had both a wheel for steering and even a hood. 1950 saw the introduction of the Plus 4, which led to the more popular Plus 8. The Aero Coupe is based on the Aero 8, the company's first car to be built with an aluminium chassis and body. The Coupe has a 4.8-litre V8 engine, producing 367 horsepower. The precision sheet metal parts of the Aero Coupe, including the bonded chassis, begin here, where computer-aided design and manufacturing make building the chassis parts easier and faster. The software controls the machine tools during the roughing, semi-finishing, finishing and contour milling stages. This punch press works similar to a paper hole punch. The punch presses the aluminium sheet against the support die and into a round opening. Any scrap metal is collected in a container. Chassis parts are formed by nibbling, where punched holes overlap to form the required shape. More strokes are delivered along the punched path to create the smooth edge. Produced in Germany, these thin aluminium sheet plies have been coated with PT2, an organic compound which increases the strength of the bonds formed when the parts are glued together. After the punch machine has cut the pieces, they're shaped further using a mechanical folding, coining and air bending machine called a press brake. Air bending the aluminium means each sheet is bent when the upper die strikes the aluminium with a preset pressure into the lower die to form the desired shape. The car's chassis is built from 32 parts, and this folding process takes 4 hours per chassis. In the clean room for recently machined parts, each part is stacked according to their pattern group. They'll soon be joined together to form the internal framework of the car. Within the clean room environment, the midsection of the chassis is placed onto a work cart. The larger pieces of the chassis have already been assembled. Now the main parts will be bonded and riveted together. The front-end base component with a structural epoxy adhesive is attached first. The gel's orange colour helps to highlight its placement during assembly. The two parts are pushed together and a tool is used to ensure they're aligned. Rivets are then hammered into the holes, which will lock the two sections together. The rivets are then set using servo-driven tools. Using both glue and rivets ensures the joints are both strong and watertight. This process increases productivity and saves time when attaching the chassis parts. Next, more adhesive is applied to the other end of the chassis. This high-strength adhesive has been in use since the Second World War and was designed for air and sea shipbuilding. With the addition of further aluminium pieces, the subframe of the cockpit is created. The chassis then stands for 25 minutes in a curing room at 190 degrees Celsius to dry the adhesive. Test samples are placed on the chassis that use the same batch of aluminium and glue. In order to verify the strength of the bond, the samples are peeled apart by a tensile testing machine, applying 1 to 3 kilonewtons of force. It takes 13 hours to assemble the chassis, and after getting a seal of approval, it's sent on its way to become an Aero Coupe. The Aero Coupe continues Morgan's long tradition of hand-building their cars around a wooden frame and a metal chassis. Wood is used because it provides both strength and flexibility. The wood predominantly used for building the frame is ash. A series of pre-designed router jigs are used to help sculpt parts of the wooden frame using a specialized table saw. Known as the wood frame process, parts are first cut into pattern pieces in the factory's mill. Once the pieces have been cut, they're sanded and shaved to the correct size and weight. At another workbench, a high-strength adhesive is applied to one side of 3 wooden panels. The glue is spread from one end to the other and then checked to ensure the pieces are fully coated. The 3 pieces are then joined back to back. The combined sheet is then placed into a jig that's more than 60 years old. This clamp pressure technique molds the wood to form a specific shape. The pieces are then hammered into place using a piece of wood so as not to damage the part. Next, the jig is clamped and bolted together to ensure an even pressure so that the planks shape correctly. Completely secure, the wood sits in the antique jig for 1 hour until the glue is fully absorbed into the wood and completely dry. After which, the newly shaped component is removed. In this case, the wing. In another part of the workshop, a frame piece is being shaped using a hand plane. Planing produces horizontal, vertical, or inclined flat surfaces. Next, the hand-planed edges are sanded down and smoothed. The finished piece is placed next to the other parts. It's time-consuming work, as it takes 3 days to build the ashwood frame before it can be fitted onto the car's chassis. The frame is assembled using both high-strength wood glue as well as stainless steel screws that are fitted into pre-drilled holes. The manufacturer calls this process 21st century coach building. The ash hardwood will be sandwiched between the aluminium outer body panels and the rigid internal aluminium chassis. Clamps are used to hold the wood in position, while the stainless steel screws are installed. Once the hardwood frame is completely assembled, The substructure is placed onto the aluminium chassis for fitting. The wing supports are also added to the rear of the chassis and then screwed into place. A key component within the factory is woodwork. The car's frame embodies the company's tradition and also keeps alive old skills. The factory woodshop is very small. Every element of the wooden frames are made using common and traditional tools. Here, frames for various models are built at the same time. Each wooden subframe is taken for dip treatment. Hooked onto pulleys, an ash frame is lowered into a tank of insecticidal wood care chemical, designed to protect and preserve the timber. After the wood absorbs enough of the chemical, the frame is removed from the tank and rests on slats while it drip dries. There's still a long way to go before the final Aero Coupe rolls off the production line. Today on How It's Made Dream Cars is a car built primarily by hand, the Morgan Aero Coupe. We've seen how the chassis and frame are constructed. Next, it's the aluminium body. Since 1909, traditional craftsmanship has been key in almost every way. Before becoming a reality, designers and engineers first conceptualized the car using age-old tools, such as pencil and paper. But the company doesn't live in the dark ages. From paper to 3D rendering, designers use computer software that allows them to recreate their ideas, enabling them to see how it would appear in reality. But to transform the 3D renderings into the finished article requires some bending and twisting. Although some parts of the car's body are superformed, others, like the bonnet panels, require a personal touch. The bonnet panels are cut from a single sheet of aluminium and shaped by hand. Using a manual slip roll machine, the unbent aluminium sheet is placed onto a bender. The back of the roll is brought up to the required position, and then the piece is bent. In no time, these two panels are formed. This car company is all about details, and pretty much everything is hand-built. Here, a small circular piece of aluminium is secured into a mold. A metal stamp is used to hammer and shape the edge. And this will become the fuel cap of the Aero Coupe. The car continues to take shape as the aluminium skin parts are attached to the wooden frame. These include the side panels and the roof. All the panels are inspected to ensure they fit perfectly. From process to progress, more pieces are mounted to the main body, and the final car begins to take shape. With most of the car's body panels fitted, it's time for the next phase in preparing this supercar's identity. And since the assembly line has never involved any robots or conveyor belts, the body is pulled on a cart by muscle to the paint shop. The panels are individually sprayed with a water-based paint, which is again done by hand. The painting process of the entire car takes 3 days. The manufacturer has been constructing cars for over 100 years, but some things have changed in that time. The leather that's used is a low-carbon Scottish leather, and the interior cabin requires 4 cowhides. The construction of the seat covers begins with the stitching of the company emblem. All the leatherwork is done using twin-needle contrast stitching. Next, the leather covering for the front seat is slid onto the seat back, ensuring it's perfectly aligned with the frame. It's then checked for fit, before hog ring pliers are used to pull the leather repeatedly so that it matches the frame. The seat's bottom cushion is then inserted into the seat back's lower frame. The leather is then spread and pulled into place before it's attached to the frame. The cushion is fixed into position using a staple gun. Small metal clamps are also installed to bind the leather to the seat's frame before the leather cushion is smoothed to ensure an even fit. Again, hog pliers are used to pull the leather edges of the seat cushion to ensure it fits the frame, completing the car's racing-inspired bucket seat. A prominent feature of any car is the front-end signature grille. The grille is handcrafted using pre-cut parts that are welded together. Once the welds cool, any unwanted material is ground away and the joints are smoothed. A smooth, clean look is key for a car to stand out in any crowd. The Morgan Aero Coupe is designed from research, taken from the racetrack to the company's laboratories. Advanced computer software allows engineers to conceptualize a full working car in just a few clicks. The heart of this car is the 4.8-litre V8 engine supplied by the German car manufacturer BMW. It's the same engine that was used in their X6 SUV. With the ultra-stiff aluminium chassis complete, the engine is manoeuvred into position using a pneumatic hoist. The 8-cylinder engine produces 367 horsepower, resulting in the car going from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 4.5 seconds. Moving from the front end to the back of the aluminium chassis, the rear transaxle is slowly hoisted and secured into place before the car receives more major components. In another section, the car's undercarriage stands with steering, wheels and more electrical components already fitted. Here the power steering is checked and verified that it's functional and also that wheel alignment is correct. Using routine screenings and the latest computer software, the car's alignment and handling characteristics can be assessed to ensure they're correct. If the wheels require any adjusting, the changes are made in conjunction with the computer software, certifying the car meets the manufacturer's standards. This rigid aluminium-based car was partly inspired by the GT3 Aero that had a number of motor racing victories. With the majority of the essential parts fitted, the car is almost complete. But now it's time for the rest of the bodywork. Contributing to the external look, cosmetic parts such as the rear wing are added. Again, these are installed by hand, without the use of robots or heavy machinery. The mechanical assembly bay employs both young and experienced people. Only 175 workers help build this sculptural car. The Bay Area also assembles various other models in the same area. Each car is assembled using both modern and traditional automotive techniques. Although it looks complete to roll out of the factory, this car is not quite ready for the open road. The sports car requires some final attention as the body panels need buffing with a polishing compound. A variable speed polisher and a chamois leather are used to polish the paint. Only when this is complete is the car ready to leave the factory and roam the countryside roads. Built from ash wood, aluminium and plastic materials, not only is the Aero Coupe an example of the design and craftsmanship by the men and women working at the foot of the Malvern Hills, it also continues the traditions set by the company founder, Henry Frederick Stanley Morgan, over 100 years ago. Like the outer shell, the cockpit is also hand-finished using leather, with ash hardwood being further employed as trim. Although designed to appear like a futuristic concept car, this car is very real. Based on a racing pedigree, it's an ongoing commitment to more than 100 years of sports car production.
Discovery's buckling up for another turbocharged new series at 10 when it's car versus wild. There's Porsche perfection here next though, in more How It's Made, Dream Cars.